There's a story about the great Rabbi Zusha as he lay on his deathbed. His students, Rabbi Zusha's students, came into the room and they found him agitated and distraught. And the students asked, "Rebbe, why are you so sad? After all of the great things that you have accomplished, surely your place in heaven is assured." "I'm afraid," Zusha replied, "because when I get to heaven, God won't ask me, 'Why weren't you more like Moses? Why weren't you more like King David?' No, God will say, 'Zusha, why weren't you more like Zusha?' And then, what will I say?" This week in our Torah portion, we find not Reb Zusha, but Moses himself at the end of his life. With the entire people gathered on the shores of the Jordan River, ready to cross over into Eretz Yisrael, Moses delivers his final speech to the Israelites. Not only is this Moses' final oration, but Rashi teaches that, in fact, Moses knew that this would be the final day of Moses' life. Looking back over a lifetime of 120 years, of so many accomplishments, what final parting wisdom did Moshe share? How did he wish to frame his legacy for those who would carry on? Moshe said the words, "Hachayim v'hamavet netati lefanecha, habracha v'haklala, uvacharta b'chayim, lema'an techiyeh ata v'ze'arecha." I have put before you life and death, bracha v'haklala, blessing and curse. Moses says, choose life, that you and your descendants may live. Moses implores us to choose life. But what does that really mean? It seems so obvious. Between life and death, the choice is clear. So what does that mean, to choose life? Rabbi Barry Levy teaches that the answer can be found in the writings of another Hasidic Rebbe, the Slonomer Rebbe. He writes that each of us has a unique tikkun, a unique healing of the world that we, as individuals, are uniquely qualified to do. It is for the purpose of fulfilling this unique mission that our souls begin the long journey downward into our bodies, into this physical world. The mystics tell us that no one else can accomplish our mission. By dint of our uniqueness, those special characteristics that come with our soul being put into our bodies and the things that we experience in our lives, because of those unique qualities, there is something special that each of us can accomplish that no one else can. And that was a lesson that Reb Zusha learned too late. Reflecting on a full life in this parasha, Moses wanted to impart that same wisdom. He did not want the Israelites to come to the end of their own lives and regret the path not followed. He didn't want them to question whether they embraced their own unique gifts or whether they ran from them, whether they followed their own dreams or ended up, as too many in our society do, ended up living according to values that someone else or that our society at large told them was important. How do we choose life? What does it mean to do as Reb Zusha could not, to live as ourselves? That is a question that each of us must answer on our own. But it is also the question that our upcoming high holy days confront us with year after year. In a few days, we will read together these words which I mentioned a few minutes ago. Who will live and who will die? Who shall perish by water, by fire, by plague? Who shall reach the end of their days and who shall not? In fact, if you think about it, Yom Kippur is really a dress rehearsal for death. For one day we leave all of our bodily needs behind. We refrain from food and drink. Like a corpse, we put nothing into our body to nourish or sustain us. We absolve from the pleasures of the flesh. Traditionally, we dress also in all white, which is reminiscent of a burial shroud, in which one day we will all end up. The question is not who will die. The high holidays remind us that we all will die. But in light of that, the question that these high holy days pose is how we will live before our last day comes. Unlike Por Zusha, the high holidays ask if we can embrace our true nature and if we can live by the values that we hold most dear, instead of trying to be like Moses or Elon Musk or Beyonce or whoever the cool kids are trying to be like these days. How do we live as ourselves? In 2015, New York Times columnist David Brooks wrote an article called The Moral Bucket List. And in this article, Brooks categorizes the positive, beneficial values that guide how we live into two separate buckets: resume virtues and eulogy virtues. Brooks defines the two. Quote, "The resume virtues are the ones that you bring to the marketplace. The eulogy virtues are the ones that are talked about at your funeral. Whether you were kind or brave, honest or faithful. Were you capable of deep love?" The high holy days, they force us to ask the question, do I spend more time focused on my resume virtues or my eulogy virtues? And of course, that is not to say that our resume virtues are unimportant. Being successful in school or in our careers, there is honor in work. And through our work, we help bring goods or services to people who need them. There is fulfillment in that and meaning in that. But of course, there's a reason why at funerals we don't often hear, "She was a master at spreadsheets," or "I will always remember that incredible PowerPoint presentation that she gave to our clients in 2015. No, in our parashah, very close to the end of the entire Torah, Moses does not, in effect, update his LinkedIn page. He doesn't recount his past triumphs, though, of course, there are many. How, with God's help, of course, he led the people, our people, out from slavery. He shepherded them in the wilderness for so many years. That is not what Moses recounts at the very end. No, at the end of his life, he's not worried about the resume virtues. He wants to make sure that the people who come after him will have a life of meaning, of blessing, of Torah. Next week, we will pray that God writes us into the book of life. But God does not dictate how we live our lives as long as we're still here. This is up to us. So in the year ahead, in 5782, as we write the story of who we want to become, let us remember Moses and Reb Zusha. In this year ahead, may we be guided by the values that we hold most dear. May we choose life. That will be our legacy. Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova. May we all be written into the book of life.